My next guest is fired up over the left's move to, quote, resurrect the radical feminist equal rights amendment. She warns the efforts to broaden the law could actually have dangerous consequences. Joining me now from International Women's Forum, senior policy analyst Inez Stepman. All right, Inez, let me just start here. Like, we always hear about inequality, women's inequality, different pay rates and things like that. So why is it a bad thing for them not to say, hey, let's push this further?
Because women already enjoy full legal equality in the United States, both under state law, federal law, and under the Constitution. Nobody says that women don't have First Amendment rights to worship and speak, or the right to a jury trial, or the right to bear arms, right? Women already enjoy legal equality. And what the ERA would do is replace that legal equality with this very harsh enforced notion of interchangeability or sameness between the sexes that would prevent the law from taking into account the very real differences between men and women. And sometimes that would actually put women in harm's way.
Give us an example of where that might be a problem. Just for instance, the interchangeability that you're pointing to.
Sure. So any number of laws would be suspect under the ERA. So anything from, of course, Phyllis Schlafly called out the draft, right? And saying that if an ERA passed back in the 70s, then women would have to be drafted into combat alongside men. But that's actually just one tip of the iceberg of all the consequences that this law could have. So, for example, currently there are spousal Social Security benefits, right? Even if you choose to stay home, you can draw on your spouse's Social Security benefits. That's something that Ruth Bader Ginsburg has suggested would run afoul of a, quote, equality principle that she thinks that the ERA would ratify. And also any situation in which men and women are now separated, for example, bathrooms in schools or public facilities, women's sports in public universities, all of those things would have to become co-ed. So this is a very radical amendment, and it's being sold to the American people as something that is just about basic legal equality, and that's just not the case. We already have basic legal equality between men and women.
So is it just an old talking point about fairness or unfairness that seems to play very well, particularly during election years? Is it a misguided effort on their part, or do they just refuse to see the things that you're laying out here?
Well, I think in many cases, proponents of the ERA, they embrace these consequences, right? They want to make men and women interchangeable. And that is just not
you're
something...
saying there's certain places and certain things where they're just simply not interchangeable.
Right. Men and women are different. We're physically and biologically different. And most of the time, those differences don't matter, right? We know that women can be chemists and astronauts, but sometimes those differences do matter. For example, when we separate men and women into different prisons, because putting women in with men, or for example, battered women's shelters, putting them in with men
Before I let you go,
makes them vulnerable.
There's also quickly a piece in Vox I was fascinated with, because Vox is a little left-leaning, but they're essentially saying, hey, progressives, you're making a big mistake if you complain about the economy. Instead, you should be talking about what we can do with this amazing economy for things like women's rights or child care and things like that. How important of an issue do you think that's going to be this year? It feels like it's really rising toward the top.
I absolutely think cultural issues are going to be part of this election, precisely because the Democrats are not going to have a lot to run on when it comes to the economy, hopefully. I mean, anything can happen between now and the election.
And that's what the gist of this article is that, hey, you can't say the economy is bad. You can argue about capitalism all you want, but we're doing pretty good. You might as well argue about how we distribute the gains from that. And to your point, the cultural issues never go away.
That's true.
All right, Inez, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, next, could AOC be right?